We're live.
Good evening, everyone, all our participants here on Zoom as well as on Facebook. Welcome to the 8th and concluding episode of True Talks for Coaches, a live masterclass for coaches who want to help people transform their lives and achieve their goals. I am Mamta Sharma, Director, iChar Support Foundation, and a coach myself. At iChars, we are relentlessly working towards helping coaches and therapists build advanced coaching and therapeutic skills. To answer our questions, we have with us Nitin Shah, founder and director, iChars and iChar Support Foundation. Welcome, Nitin.
Thank you, Mamta.
Before I go forward, I would like to share with everyone the workshops and various initiatives that are underway at iChars. The Cognitive Hypnotic Coaching and Psychotherapy course, the initial 2 levels are being conducted online now, and you can check the details at www.ichars.com. That is our website, ichars.com. In addition, we are also conducting shorter programs in anxiety counseling certification and relationship counseling certification for those of you who want to develop skills in these specific specializations. We run a live support group for psychologists every Tuesday evening and a peer coaching group for coaches who want to practice with their peers, with each other every Sunday morning, so you can enhance your coaching skills. You're most welcome to ask us any questions, since this is like a season finale for us. If there are any questions that you have about whatever we have discussed so far with respect to coaching, or if you have any other questions, feel free to leave your comments in the chat box here at Zoom and in the comment section on Facebook. I would like to sum up whatever we have done so far quickly. In this series, we have discussed about what coaching really is and how is it different from overlapping or seemingly similar fields like mentoring, training, and therapy. And we also have looked at various coaching models. We very closely looked at and elaborate in the most comprehensive coaching model, which we call Soft C, which we also practice at iChars. We spoke about the various coaching competencies, why are they important, and what role do they have when it comes to helping your clients achieve their goals and outcomes. And we also spoke about who can benefit from coaching, what are the various coaching specializations or niches that you can specialize in as a coach. So over to you, Nitin.
So, Mamta, basically, this is exactly what we have done during the last 7 episodes. The time has just flown by. It's interesting how quickly we have reached the end of this particular series. What I would like to know is, for those of you who are with us live, either on Facebook or on Zoom, if you have any questions that we have not answered earlier, please shoot those questions to us so that we can answer those questions right now. Most of what we wanted to cover, we have already covered in the previous 7 episodes. But yeah, we are here to answer every question that is still left and that you would like to ask us.
Perfect. So just start posting your questions or comments or feedback, any that you have, something that you may have found useful in these episodes and that has helped you in any way. Or if you have a question, something you would like us to answer or explore here on this platform, you're most welcome to share that. Yeah.
And even if you have not joined the earlier episodes, that's completely okay. If you have any questions right now, you can feel free to ask us and we would revisit and we would answer those questions.
So waiting for your questions, comments.
Now, while we are waiting for those questions and comments, Mamta, I need you to tell me, we have gone through this complete series, right? 7 episodes by now.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your key takeaway?
Okay. So a couple, Nitin, a few of them. One, how, while everyone's working toward a goal and outcome, whether they're working with a coach or by themselves, the importance of, one, how important it is to have a framework, a structure to the entire coaching process, right? And very interestingly, even mentors and trainers can use the same framework in their own fields and get the kind of results that they are looking for, and therapists, so everybody. Second, how beautifully flexible, the soft C model when we looked at is, and how one, it takes care of everybody. So it's broad enough to take care of everybody, and it's flexible enough to be customized to an individual client. And because I've used it, so I've seen the results and how beautifully it kind of accommodates everybody and all kinds of issues or goals that we are working with. And we talk about competencies, and we talk about empathy, and we talk about a lot of things, and how the model itself is designed in a way that even if you are new in the field and you've not worked with hundreds of clients, the model itself guides you into what you need to do next, right? So that's, I think, a brilliant tool, because we did not have it when we started working with clients. And I know the years of churning that we have gone through in creating this and experimenting and adding things and integrating various things into it. So I think that's brilliant. Even new people who are you have just got their certifications or who want to become coaches. So I think this is brilliant. I mean, anybody can learn this and start using this to work with their clients, achieve any kinds of goals that they may have, not only career or professional goals, but even other goals, health goals, relationship or personal growth goals. So I think that's like a big one thing that stands out over and above the other things.
Perfect. So if I'm not wrong, I'm going to turn this episode around, and I'm probably going to take your interview in this episode majorly.
Okay.
Okay. So tell me, what is your understanding of a coachee coming and telling you, I want to follow my passion, right? And I know what my passion is,
Okay.
and I need you to help me succeed on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have started following this passion because I think following my passion will make my life easier.
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them?
Okay. So that's an interesting question, because a lot of people out there have discovered that everyone is supposed to find and follow their passion, and life would be futile if you didn't, right? So okay, wonderful. So if they have found their passion, obviously it's good to have a passion, and it's good to say that now I've found it and everything else should be easy from here. But we know, because we are working on our passion and we are trying to make it come true and so on, and dedicate our lives to it. I think who better than us to say that yes, so the road to following your passion is full of bumps. It has its highs, but it has its lows. So when you create that action plan, so if I look at from the coaching perspective, right? So all coaches definitely work with their clients, help them create a defined outcome, help them create an action plan, right? But another very important element, and I think a very critical element, is to help your coachee be able to work towards those elements of their passion journey which they have not thought about. So for example, I'll share my example. I'm a coach and I am working towards establishing myself now. So I'm working in a city now, I want to go countrywide, and then I may say, okay, I want to now go to pan Asia or across the world, which requires me to do a lot of things that are technically not part of my passion, right? So, say building a website, or branding, or promotions, or for example, doing this live here today. That may not have been my passion. My passion is to help people transform their lives and help them achieve goals, right? So, one obviously need to understand what all is it going to take to actually bring that passion to life. One, so that's part of the typical coaching plan. So you outcome, plan of action, and so on. When I start doing those things and I realize they are not really my cup of tea, then some people may feel frustrated. Some people may, or they may even feel, why do I need to do this? I am a coach. I don't need to market or brand myself. So a coach should be able to help such a client work towards that. And when you start working towards your passion, when you start working towards anything, there'll be roadblocks, there'll be disappointments, there'll be bumps, there'll be days when you will see no end in sight, right? It's important on those days or in those situations to be able to overcome that state and then get up on your feet and get up the next morning and start working again with the same enthusiasm, which again requires a lot of mental state management work. So yes, the coach should also have. So if I had a coachee like that, then I know that. So that's part of my job. I'll have to help them work towards overcoming those daily disappointments, roadblocks. How do I work towards things that I had not even thought of working towards? How do I think marketing is a bad thing, People are out there to make money. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to help people. So what do I do? How will a coach help a coachee overcome that and start working towards their plan of action? So I think those are the key areas that need to be addressed.
So as someone said, success is a result of being able to do things that you don't enjoy doing as well as things that you enjoy doing.
Absolutely.
Right. And this is one of the things actually that I face when I'm working with clients.
Mm-hmm.
There are places where clients will come and say, but I follow my passion. Life was supposed to be easy, right?
Yeah.
Why do I need to plan? Why do I need to have a timetable? Why is it that I'm supposed to slog myself? So here's the thing, that when you're working with goals, please let go of this myth from your head that passion is everything. Passion is a very good starting point.
Yes.
And both as a coach and if you are working with someone else as a coachee.
Yeah.
Remember this. Passion is a very good starting point because it will get you through challenges which probably other people will not be able to go through, as they don't have something that they want to look forward to, that they want to work towards. They're not as passionate about it as probably you are about something. But if you were to get stuck with this idea, or if your client gets stuck with this idea that I have passion and that's all that is required, okay, and if you end up encouraging that idea, God bless you and God bless your coachee.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you've discussed this. I had a client a few years back. She told me that Nitin, so she sent a message to me and she asked me that, can you help? I've been told that you are into coaching and therapy. So I said, please let me know what is it that you would like me to help with. So she said, can we speak over a call? I said, okay. And over the call, she told me that I was told by she used to visit someone in terms of, I think, future prediction or something, that I was told by my guru that I'm going to follow my passion and I'm going to make a massive positive difference in people's life. To the word massive, I hear it so frequently and so loosely thrown around nowadays. Anyways, so I've been told that I would create this massive difference in the world. And I said, good. So if that's what you were planning to create, and if if you wanted to follow your passion, that's good for you. What do you need my help for? She said, I've not been able to figure out my passion. And I said, wait, and how long back was this? She says, for the last 3 years, I've been trying to figure out my passion. And then I asked her, what are you doing to figure that passion out? She says, I don't know what to do because I want to follow my passion. Unless I find my passion, how can I do something else?
Nitin, I've had clients who have actually quit jobs to find the passion. Follow will obviously come later. So they're not doing anything, as you said, while they're pursuing that idea of passion, which is okay. But meanwhile, what are you doing with the time that you have, and what do you have a plan for this? And do you have any idea? Are you even working towards? So it's not that one morning I'll wake up and I'll have an idea that this is what I want to do. I mean, even to find it, I need to have a plan and start working towards finding it. And I also need another plan to sustain myself meanwhile. So the client that I am talking about, so the client comes to me with the issue is, I have a major dispute with my parents. And the dispute is that every morning I wake up around noon. I spend some time on my phone. So around lunch, I go to the kitchen and I try to see what is available to eat. And that is when my parents see me, one of them at least, and they say, what's your plan for the day or in general about life? And I lose it. And because I lose it, after that, I don't do anything any which ways. And that's how I'm spending my days. Um, and the idea was I quit my job like about a few months ago, 3-4 months ago, because I was not happy in it. So I realized, because I'm not following my passion, this job is not my passion. So I'll sit at home and I'll figure out what my passion is. And since I've stopped going out, I'm not also meeting a lot of people. So my social life is almost nothing except commenting and liking other people's photos. And when I look at them being happy where they are, that adds to my frustration.
So that's exactly the thing, that when you're working with clients who come to you with these ideas about passion, as a coach, it's extremely important for you to be able to help them understand uh, that there is more to goal setting, goal accomplishment than just following passion, right? Uh, and as I said, that doesn't mean that we are discounting the importance of passion. The way I began, I said that passion for us is a very good starting point, but that's not the end point, and that's not everything when it comes to goal setting and goal accomplishment, right? So, Mamta, what do you do? So, let's say someone comes and tells you this, that I want to follow my passion. How would you work with them from a coach? And by the way, for those of you who don't know, Mamta actually specializes in working with people with respect to helping them find their passion and also helping them follow their passion. That's one of her specializations. Mamta, you're mute.
So if they have found it, so obviously I begin by asking them, what is the end goal? What's the outcome that you're looking for? And because we follow the SOFC model, so we use the format I wish. So what do you wish to do? And they say, okay, so somebody says, I wish to be the best photographer, or I wish to, let me fine tune it, or I wish to make documentaries for the Discovery Channel, let's say. Okay, so, and that's my passion, and so on. And once they have that, and I ask them, okay, so what, uh, if you have that, let's assume you have it for a moment, and what does that life look like? What does it mean to be a photographer for the Discovery Channel, and or a videographer for Discovery Channel? And they're like, what do you mean? That's generally the question. What do you mean? I'll be a photographer, or I'll be like working for them. I'll be sending them documentaries, videos, and I'll be getting paid, and I'll be traveling. I'll be going to safaris. They'll be paying for it. Okay, and so that's what it is. And when you ask them, okay, but like, what does that exactly mean? Will you be, what places will you be going to? What, when you say documentary, will it be places? Will it be animals? What will it be? And so on. So I ask them very specific questions to help them describe that life to me very precise, very exactly, almost like what should I say, a screenplay of a life that they would be living, So so I'm traveling so and so airline, and I'm going to exactly. So I'm going to the Masai Mara forest in Africa, and I'm working on a documentary about lions. So I find forest guides who specialize in lions, and so on. So they actually describe it very precisely to me. This is my camera. I'm using a Nikon, whatever model. I have this lens, and I specialize in whatever, their niche in this thing is photography or whatever that is, right? So they describe that entire life to me. What does it mean? What kind of money are they making? How do they know they're making that kind of money? What are they? Who are they meeting? What are those people saying about their work? How do they know people appreciate their work? What's a sign? What's what's an observable. So basically we help them describe that life in a very, we call it sensory specific manner, but to put it simply, in a very observable, measurable manner. So if you're saying you are rich because you've been able to follow your passion, what does that mean? Are you making like a lakh a month, or are you making 10 lakhs a month? And how do you know you are making that money? Because I have such and such car, or because my shoes are this brand, right? And once they have defined that, like, so that's like a lengthy, elaborate, very observable description that I can see and hear, and they can see and hear in the future when they have achieved it. Then I also ask them what's happening in other areas of your life now that you're following your passion. And that's another, that's when I get the other surprising look. What do you mean? I'll be doing what I'll be doing, but because you are one person, it's not that there's one of you living doing the career bit of you, and there's another one of you who is doing your relationships. You are one person, so what's happening in those areas of your life? And they're like, okay. And then they start thinking, so okay, so my partner is going with me, oh, but they may not want to go with me, right? So they start thinking, and they start thinking about what they're doing in other areas of your life. And that's a very, very good tool, because we spoke about ecological goal setting, right? So if anything, because that's another thing, another place where a lot of people go wrong, apart from precisely defining and describing, and making your goals smart or whatever. It's also important to see whether those goals are actually helping you meet the wholesome goal that you have for your life.
Which is actually interesting, because many a times when I work with clients, I've noticed this, where clients have come and told me that, Nitin, I want to follow my passion, but my family members, I want to go out, I want to travel the world, but they don't want to go out with me. And I am now a bit jacked, because I want to be with my family. I am a relationship person. And at the same time, I'm not able to follow my passion, because my passion is to travel and they don't like traveling. It's like if you've seen Ye Jawani Hai Diwani, right? So it's something like that, where the idea is that two partners, one person wants to travel, one person doesn't want to travel. And unless you're able to help them create that ecology, it becomes extremely difficult for them to be able to follow their passion and follow it happily. Because while people think following their passion will make them happy, but again, imagine the situation where the client is able to follow the passion of traveling the world, but for that, their partner decides not to be with them. The partner may have a different passion altogether, right? And they are not happy with that. Now, will their passion make them happy? Obviously, the answer would vary from people to people, but if they understand this in advance, that can be very, very useful. And so if I were to take this forward, so apart from obviously being able to define their future, being able to define their outcomes clearly and ecologically, what are the key hindrances or challenges that you have noticed people facing who follow their passion? And by the way, while we are doing this question and answers, remember, today's session is all about we answering your questions. So we're just waiting for your questions. And meanwhile, we are just having a conversation so that we can also give you enough time to ask us questions if anything comes to your mind. So please feel free to ask whatever questions come to your mind. Put it in the chat box. The session today, we are discussing about passion simply because that's one of the things that has been there on my head for some time. But otherwise, we would really like to answer all your questions right now. Hamanta, sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Nitin, once again, I think we keep talking about how people talk about lack of clarity, resources, skills, and states. So, broadly, it would fall into all those categories. So, I want to follow my passion, but I have no idea where the money is going to come from, or I have no idea really where to begin, right? Or so, as if I take the same example, want to be a world-class photographer, and I have no idea where to build that skill. I know some of it, which tells me it's my passion, right? But I don't know where the money is going to come from. And while I reach that level, how will I sustain myself? Because I can't keep telling my parents to, because already I've been sitting at home trying to find what my passion is. So I've already been, on their payroll, so to say, and I don't want to be. So that's another challenge that they have. Once they start working towards it, and let's say they have some resources to at least begin their journey, then comes another roadblock, which is when I start working towards my passion. So I'm assuming they're more like solopreneurs. So they're like one person doing everything, because not everybody has the resources to begin with. They may have some. So which means I need to do, from the office boy to the president of the company, I am everybody. And I need to play all those roles. And I had not even thought about it. I had, how can I do this? As I said, how can I market myself? I know of coaches, and one person even said that how shallow it is for me to be a coach transforming lives and advertise on Facebook, right? So that's a skill and state. I mean, it's a question on both levels. One, do you actually know what it means to market yourself on Facebook? And is it the same or different from advertising, the image of advertising you have in your head? So that's another roadblock, because you would need to, either you would have to hire somebody, but even if you hire somebody, you would have to tell them what to do. So that is a skill question as well as a state question, because I may have to overcome the idea in my head that it's a bad thing to do. But if that is what it takes for me to actually bring my passion to life, I'll have to do it, right? And then there are questions of disappointments. So if I want to establish myself as a coach, it is not going to happen in 2 days, 4 days, 6 days, 10 days. Disappointment starts setting in pretty, if I can say, early, right? So because, let's say when I talk about coaching, there are programs that tell people that you'll be earning lakhs of rupees within 2 months of, a month or so. So that, plus because my end goal is that I'll be a world-class photographer or baker or whatever it is for a person. And they had not planned for those disappointments, that when I create a portfolio of my work and I show it to somebody and they may completely reject it. What do I do with that? What do I do next? So that means I have failed at my passion. A lot of people equate it to I have failed and this is not going to work, which is a big disappointment to come back from, because I stopped doing what I was doing because that was not my passion. So it was easy for me to get over that if I could not make it there, or if I quit it of my own volition. But how do I quit my passion? Now I'm in a bind that I have created, because if I'm following my passion, then things should be completely effortless. And then there are like hundreds of questions. What will I tell people? Because I'd started so enthusiastically. And a lot of people, again, then resources issues start coming up. So they're like hindrances at all levels, conscious and unconscious, as we see.
Before you talk about more hindrances, interestingly, when I came into this field, my teacher had told me that, so he was from a school of thought where he said that everything is about, if you are passionate about something, things will fall into place and everything. And I was not a person who was very organized. Okay. So for me, planning used to be a task. For a long part, whatever I had done was simply because I felt like doing it and I did it. When I got into this field and when I started pursuing my career as a coach, as a trainer, obviously, till I was doing things on my own for myself, there was not much of an issue. But the moment I said I want to become a coach, I wanted to become a trainer, now I had to bring in people, right, who will come to me for a session, and I had to work with them. And I would keep wondering, how do I bring in people for a session? I had no idea about marketing. When I started, I was 24, I think. 24, yeah, right? I had not done any proper job prior to that. My parents had been really kind to me. I started a job for a few months and then I realized this is not the kind of work that I want to do. Sorry. So I really had no experience of working per se. And the biggest problem that I was not organized. And I saw my teacher who was very, very organized. He would know exactly a week in advance what his plan would be, right? So I asked him, what works for you? And he said, what works for me is that I'm very passionate and therefore I'm able to organize effectively. And I thought maybe if I follow my passion, I'll become organized, right? I tried following my passion, but good lords, I couldn't become organized for sure. It took me time to realize that my teacher was organized irrespective of whether he was following his passion or not. He was organized even in other areas of his life. So what happened with him was because he was so organized and he was also following his passion, he thought things are coming naturally and easily to him because he's following his passion. When it's the organization that made his passion a lot more easier for him to follow. I had to learn it the hard way because initially I tried to flow with the flow of life, as people call it, right? It did not work out the way I was obviously planning it out to be. I learned to organize. It took me time. It took me effort. I probably use the same coaching principles that we use with people today, right? But I was able to become organized. And once I became organized, I actually realized what it means that things will flow naturally. So my flow did not make me organized. My becoming organized made it easier for me to have a flow.
Put me in the state of flow.
Put me in a state of flow. And I actually recognize that this happens with a lot of people, because I later on, when I was speaking to people, I was interacting with people, I realized that a lot of entrepreneurs failed for this reason. It was not that they had a bad idea. It was not that they were not committed. It was just that they thought because they're passionate, whatever they would do would turn into gold.
Absolutely.
Right? And doesn't really work out that way for everyone. It does work out that way for some people. And by the way, I got married, which was the purpose of my life, because I simply flowed with the flow of life. Which was again a goal setting and goal accomplishment process for me. But only because it worked for me in one area doesn't mean that it will also work for me in another area. And probably that's important for you to also help your clients, your coaches understand. Mamta, I think there are a couple of questions also.
Yes. So I have one question here. Tripti is asking, I've not attended other sessions. I will do them now. What's the difference between counseling and coaching?
So Tripti, between counseling and coaching, the key difference is that coaching is generally more structured. Okay. Counseling is a very vague word, in the sense many a times you have people who are therapists who are called as counselors. There are coaches who call themselves as counselors. Then there are school counselors who may not have gone through extensive training in other fields, but they've specialized in school counseling. So counseling becomes like a broad word within which at times all of these are covered. Sadly, counseling is also used for people who are at times handling phone calls. So for example, if you were to put up a resume in any of the job sites and put up that I want to become a counselor, or I want to be hired as a counselor, the calls that at times you get are calls for handling inquiries and sales and so on, right? So the word counseling is too broad. Counseling and guidance, on the other hand, is more related to therapy, right? But there the idea is that there is some amount of guidance that you're providing from your side, and therefore counseling and guidance. Coaching generally would not require to provide any guidance to people, and it will not work with it. You should not be working with intense negative emotions and disorders. The moment you start working with intense negative emotions, it falls within the realm of therapy, which is again one of the parts of counseling in a broader sense. I hope that answers.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarthak has a question. Don't you think passion fizzles down for many of us and we just adjust to routines of life? And how does one identify the passion? I've had many people who just come and say, I don't know what my passion is. I like doing this, this, and this, and feel equal happiness.
Perfect. So let me answer the first question first, and then I'll ask the second question to Mamta. So the first question is, as you asked, that the passion fizzles down. And that's correct, Sarthak. Passion fizzles down simply because, like Mamta mentioned, there are disappointments that set in, right? You may start by saying that I want to follow my passion. But if that's your bread and butter, you still have to run a house. And if that passion is not giving you as much money as you need to be able to run your house, eventually it is going to create, well, it's going to create stress, it's going to create worries, it's going to create anxiety about your future. And when that starts happening, then we start cutting corners, because obviously that money is important. You need to run your house. And the moment you start cutting corners, that's when when the passion starts fizzling down, because then the idea is I wanted to follow my passion because I wanted to be true to it. Now the problem is I am not being able to true to it. So for the world, I may still be following my passion. But in my heart, I know I am not being true to what I wanted to do. Right. And that's one of the major areas where that passion fizzles down. And therefore, we keep telling people that only because you have to follow your passion doesn't mean that things are going to become easy for you. Please plan for it. If you're going to switch your career, ensuring that you have enough resources available so that when you follow your passion, there is enough time for the passion to materialize into a profitable venture. Eventually, you are setting up an organization, you're setting up an entity, you're setting up a line of work, right? There would be some gestation period between when you set it up and when you start running and making profit out of it. And believe me, I understand this well, because when I started iCharge like 7-8 years back, I thought we are going to make profits in the next 3 months. And believe me, I had good reasons to believe that, because our courses, even 8 years back, were probably the best courses, yeah, I can actually say, in the world, right? Well, today they are even better, which is a separate question altogether. But because of the power of the courses, I believe that the courses are so good, so powerful, that people would be running after us to do our courses, right? And when I did this, I jumped into it. I started with the organization and so on. It was a mistake. That mistake worked out for me because luckily I have parents who are very, very supportive. And my father had told me in the beginning that, Nitin, you are saying that you're going to make money in the first 1 year and you will reach heights and so on. Believe me, in the first 4 years, if you can even recover your cost, forget profit, that will be a good starting point. And he was right. It took us 4 years to actually be able to start making profit. Right? But as I said, for us, it worked because while I did not plan, luckily for me, I had my parents, I had my wife who supported me left, right, and center. Right? And then we had people, we had some of our students who joined us. So Paulomi joined us, Mamta joined us. A lot of people joined us over a period of time to help us, support us, because they knew what we were doing was powerful, was useful. But will everyone get people like that? I think we are kind of running a bit of a risk.
And it may take time for even that to happen. I know I took my own sweet time to formally come in on board, and yes, but then I had my reasons to continue in that journey and not say yes or no right away and whatever. So that worked out for all of us.
So for us that worked out, but will that work out for the other person? It's difficult to say unless you've planned for it properly. So some amount of planning to that extent is required, right? And that's where coaching becomes very important. And which then brings us to the second question. So Mamta, how do you help people identify passion?
Okay. So my first very straightforward question is, if there were no limitations, what would you do? So that's my first question. If you could do anything, what is it that you would do, right? Some people have an answer to that question, and that can be that light bulb moment for them. Another is, so I make them list down a few things that you love doing, things that you can be paid for, and things that have a larger purpose attached to them, right? When I say larger purpose, it may not always be saving the planet or transforming lives. It could be anything which is bigger than me, bigger than the person themselves. So something more than you, something bigger, right? And I make them write this down. In fact, we all use a big board in our coaching rooms, and I make them list it down. And when it's all there, then we look for an area where all three intersect, right? And even if they don't find an area that initially that is like lies at the intersection of those three. Eventually they are. So we do some brainstorming and so on, and they're able to find that. And then we create as I said, we create a very inspiring, compelling future. For that, we create an entire action plan, and we look at what all will they need to do whatever it takes, right? That may include first them going and researching about how they can even turn that into, is it even possible for them to turn it into a career? That could be. Or there are people who are like, I want to do this and this, and we may do a simple pros and cons or cost and benefit analysis based on that. And what does this take, and what does this take, and what does this give me, or what does this give me? So they weigh their options, a very conscious, a very logical analysis, and they're able to come up with their answers.
So apart from this, a couple of things that I do with clients which seem to work very well for me, especially when it comes to finding passion, or actually finding anything the client is not able to find, is the use of metaphors.
Oh, yes.
So I would use abstract metaphor, I would use revelation metaphor. And basically the process for revelation metaphor is quite simple. You kind of take them into a imaginary place in their mind, in a altered state, in a hypnotic state, make them do a treasure hunt, where at the end of the treasure, well, the last clue will take them to a treasure, which will give them an insight into what their passion is, or what is it that they would like to follow in their life. That would really create a lot of happiness for them. Having said that, finding the passion is just the starting point. Then, as Mamta said, we would want them to connect it to a greater purpose. Now, the reason I say greater purpose, and we actually did a complete True Talks episode on happiness and talking about flow and passion and purpose and material wealth, is because what happens with a greater purpose is that even on days on which you are not feeling comfortable and you feel that I don't want to get up and do things that I need to do to follow my passion, that purpose can end up driving you. It's, for example, for me, when I started conducting workshops again, I love conducting workshops. But because I love conducting workshops and I had no greater reasons to do it, my reason for conducting a workshop used to be that I'm passing time. Saturday, Sunday ko kuch karne ko nahi, chalo workshop declare kar denge. I've actually done this for 3 years, where I've declared workshops simply because I did not have anything else to do. It's just that I knew that I'm really good at it, and I knew that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do justice to the program that I'm going to conduct. But eventually it was not a thought out process. But at some point, obviously, as more people started joining us, there was greater responsibility. And then when we started planning and we started working, when we assigned a greater purpose to it, and for me, my initial greater purpose was that I enjoy my work, which is brilliant. I would like people who are working with us to be able to sustain themselves simply by working with us. They shouldn't be required to do anything else. Like if there are other trainers with us, if there are therapists associated with us, then we should be able to provide them enough work so that they can completely be running a emotionally, financially fulfilling life without having to worry about anything else in their life. When that became an important part of what I was doing, okay, it was not just about Saturday, Sunday. There were other days when I would work, like I would work till late night, and not because I had to work. It's because I wanted to work. That purpose was driving me, and that purpose was in sync with what I love doing. Right? So yes, that revelation metaphor can be extremely useful. And last, I would actually ask the client that while you are trying to find your purpose, what are the things that you want to do to pass your time while being able to make money out of it?
Right.
Generally, that is the answer to their passion also.
Perfect.
I hope, Sarthak, that answers your question.
Yeah.
So if any of you have any other questions, please feel free to ask, continue asking, because we would love to answer all of those questions.
Nitin, there is a question on Facebook. What is the difference between clinical psychologist and counselor? I think we have, in a way, answered that.
Correct. So Ganesh, just to give you a distinction, I think we've also typed it over there, but the answer is that a clinical psychologist can work with disorders, can conduct clinical tests, but a counselor cannot. Clinical psychologists also need to be registered with RCI. our counselors don't need to register with RCA.
Perfect.
Okay. Also, clinical psychologists are defined officially under the Mental Health Professionals Act, if Mental Health Act, if I'm not wrong. Counselors as a word is not defined.
Great. Ganesh also has a question. I want to do the diploma in clinical hypnosis and related sciences. I think he's referring to cognitive hypnotic coaching. I'm pursuing an MA in clinical psychology. Can I do that?
Yes, Ganesh, you can pursue the cognitive hypnotic psychotherapy program. I'm sharing the details with you in the reply. And
Okay.
you can check out the course detail over there.
Perfect. There's an interesting question from Meenu. Why the effect of NLP is not long lasting?
So Meenu, just give me a second. I'll just respond to Ganesh and then I'll answer that question to you.
Okay. Meanwhile, if any of you have any questions. Okay. Someone has also asked, sorry, because it's related. Dr.
Sure.
Veena Pandey is asking, I want to do a diploma in guidance and counseling. Is it possible to do from your institution?
So I've already answered that question to Dr. Veena. I think someone has already answered from ICHAS that question. They've also shared my number. So if you would like, you can connect with me about course related queries if you have. That said, we don't really, the diploma that we have, we don't really call it counseling and guidance. Also, I would suggest if you want to do a counseling and guidance diploma because you are looking for a job somewhere, then do a counseling and guidance diploma only with a UGC recognized university. No certificate course will be equivalent to that. But if you are looking at developing skills in terms of being able to work with people effectively, then the course details that have been shared with you are probably a lot more effective. Now, coming to Meenu's question. Why the effects of NLP is not long lasting? So, Meenu, depends on which technique in NLP you're doing. Actually, so one of the things about NLP is a very broad field. There are many techniques in NLP, and on top of it, the way NLP is defined is anything that works is NLP, which basically means everything becomes a part of NLP. Some techniques in NLP are short-term techniques, some techniques in NLP are long-term techniques. Also, not every technique in NLP will work with every client, and that's the reason why we always combine hypnosis with NLP, because for us, when NLP doesn't work, that's an indicator that the structured process needs to be customized to meet the needs of the client that you're working with. Now, if you're doing a process like, let's say, I'm going to give you an answer purely from the basis of NLP right now, and I'm not jumping into hypnosis to give that answer. Let's say you're doing a process on anchoring, and you were to anchor a positive emotion with a client. The anchoring happens. The client knows that every time they tap their index finger or they tap their knuckle, they feel a particular emotion. That feeling continues for the next couple of months. But then in a particular situation where they actually want to feel that feeling doesn't come up. And that's when the client starts feeling that the anchor is no longer working. The effects of NLP have kind of diminished. What that basically tells us is that in the situation where the client tried using the anchoring process and it did not work for them, there was a positive intention that the unconscious was carrying, and that positive intention needs to be worked upon. There's another NLP process called reframing that you can use to identify the unconscious positive intention and work with that, after which the process will become very long lasting. But I've worked with clients where they had allergies for years, nothing else worked for them, and we did two sessions, one probably for soft C, one for reframing, and after that the allergy did not come back. And the allergy did not come back. Like I generally maintain follow-ups with clients after the session gets over for at least 4 to 5 months. And for the next 5 months, the clients that I'm doing everything that I was earlier having allergic response to, and there's no response like that. So it actually depends on what is the sequencing of techniques that you've used, what process you've used, and what are the challenges that you're facing. Will every technique in NLP give you long-lasting effect? The answer is no. But if you are skilled enough to use NLP and you're able to club the different techniques of NLP together, and if you know hypnosis on top of it, okay, then the chances of having a relapse is unlikely. And if there is a relapse, you know what process to use. A relapse of a relapse is highly unlikely. I haven't come across a situation where that's happened with me. I hope that answers your question, Meenu. If you have a follow-up question, please let us know. Yep. So we were on passion, right? Meanwhile,
I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. I lost in the questions. Yeah.
so Mamta, you were talking about challenges and I'd cut you in between. So any other challenges apart from the ones that you've discussed, that people who have
I think
passion?
it's primarily disappointments. One, disappointments. Two, I did not know that I will have to do all this apart from my passion. That's also huge. So primarily those, and of course, I had not planned on what am I going to do to sustain myself, and if I have other people dependent on me, how am I going to ensure their well-being and their sustenance while I'm working on my passion. Very interestingly, there's one set of people who have not thought about it and have started following their passion. And there's another set of people who do not even begin because they fear we lose this sustenance, or that is the only way to work towards my passion, to completely stop what I'm doing and then begin doing what I want to do. So I can never do it because I'm stuck, because I have to provide not only for myself but also for people who are dependent on me, so my family and so on, and they do not even try to do what they wish to do or what their passion is, and that frustrates them. So that's another interesting problem that people have.
That's interesting.
It's in both cases. These are not absolutes. It does not mean I know of so many people who they've created a plan, or they have come up with an idea to be able to provide themselves with sustenance, with resources, how they're going to pay their bills and get their food from while they work on that passion, because their plan tells them that it is going to take 1 year or 2 years or 3 years to actually start making money or be able to sustain themselves with what their passion is. But then the wonderful thing is that the planning itself incorporates both the aspects. And if it is difficult for them to do their mundane sustaining work or their 9 to 5, to put it simply, then we can also help them with tools to manage their mental state so that they can do it in a way that it does not frustrate them, or they can actually do the both of them effectively.
So in fact, that's one of the things that I also tell upcoming coaches, budding coaches and enthusiasts, that if you want to become coach and if you are already doing a job somewhere, please don't jump from your current job into coaching only because you're very passionate about it. Ensure that you have enough resources available, because coaching, while you're passionate about it, which is brilliant, is like a setup of any other kind. It will have its gestation period. So you need to plan accordingly. And the easiest way to do that with coaching, and actually with coaching, it's easier compared to any other passion that you wanted to follow, is work Monday to Friday, take coaching sessions Saturday and Sunday. Your coaching sessions will be around 45 minutes to 1 hour. You will, if you're good at what you're doing and if you have the right set of people around you, you will be able to charge around at least 2,000 per session, right? So if you take the day you reach a place where you're taking 5 clients a day, right? So that's Saturday and Sunday, 2 days, 10 clients, 2,000 per client becomes 20,000. 4 weeks, 80,000. That gives you at least a starting point to be able to switch over. So if you feel that you want to get into this field, then this is the easiest way to do it, where you're able to follow your passion, prepare, plan, and then make the transition. By the time you decide to make the transition, you are making a transition because in a week you have more than 10 clients, which gives you good sustainable way of going forward. And once you reach the weekly 10 client figure, then the number just increases. Then the idea is, if you're good at it, then you're good at it. If you're not good at it, please come and join our course.
No, that's actually a good idea. And I remember me telling Nitin once, because I like to do several things. And there was a point when I said that let me stop doing. There was something that was bringing me a good amount of money. And I said, now I want to do this full time. And Nitin literally stopped me. He said, now is not the time. It's not yet. Not yet. Okay. And now I understand how important it was, because I may have given up even this had I not sustained that. And obviously, I was trained as a coach, and I have people like Nitin and Misbah and everyone around me. So we keep doing a reality check with ourselves from time to time. It was good advice, and I could do it. I could fit it into my plan, and I could redesign and reset my plan of action. And very interestingly, I have not let go of those things. In fact, Nitin was talking about being organized, and we keep coming back to the plan of action and how we can make it work. I don't want to let go of those things. I have learned to work with everything simultaneously, and they have turned into passions of their own. So that's beautiful. That's really important. That it keeps me energetic, because I'm doing various things. So I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. But I'm not saying that's the model. But to each their own. You can do it whichever way, but then you need to look at how you're going to sustain yourself. What are the skills and states that you need to develop? Are there resources you need to arrange? So all that becomes a part of the coaching process if you are helping a client work towards their passion.
Perfect. Good. So I think if you have any other questions, please let us know. We have taken a passion today, which was interesting because that's not what we were planning to do. But that's given me an idea for what our next series will be. So I'll see what we want to do about that. Anyway, so now that we are coming to an end of this particular series, this has been an interesting series for us because, again, obviously, like every other True Talk, it's helped us organize and structure our content more effectively. A lot of these would eventually get converted into books, which is the next line of work that we are focusing on. And that's happened because we have been able to do the True Talks, and we've been able to do it because of the audience and the questions that we've got from all of you, and also from Facebook and otherwise the interaction that we have on a weekly basis with people. So I would like to thank all of you for that. If you are a coach, or if you are planning to become a coach, I would really, really recommend check out the courses that we have at iCharts, because they're unique in themselves. I know I probably am biased towards the courses that we conduct. I've obviously created them. So to that extent, some amount of bias would be there. But even if I were to look at it objectively with respect to people that I've spoken to, whom have already done coaching certifications, whom have been practicing for years, and then they've done courses with us, what they've told us kind of has just reinforced the idea that what we are doing to a large extent is amazing. Probably it's so amazing that we don't realize personally how amazing it is. Now what I'm saying is, I'm saying because I've spoken to a lot of people and they've told me this, so I can kind of give it back to you. But personally for us, when we do it, it's like, all right, so this is one of the things that we do. Yeah. So I would recommend that please check out the courses. And if you're interested, join us. You have free courses available online right now on the iCharts website. So get started with that. We have started conducting the entire coaching program online now. So if you are in any part of the world and if you're interested in doing a course, you can always join us.
Yeah, so and now we are doing it in various formats. So you can do weekend batches, you can do weekday evening batches, you can do simultaneous 6-day batches if you have time, and you can do like those. So all those formats are there. Plus, if you are a coach, you want to become a relationship coach, that is a specific specialization that we are offering. You can check out relationship.icharts.com for that. That's a brilliant model to work with relationship issues, any kind of conflicts. Okay, I think I have another question. Describe your course, what levels? Okay. All right, so Zenith, right? Yeah. Okay. So Zenith, is your course available in Hindi?
Okay. So Zenith, all right. So let me take that question on that one. So the course is basically a 2-level course. It's though there are 2 levels to it. Level 1 itself is complete by itself, which means that even after level 1, you should be able to work with people for a lot of things. The only thing that you will not be able to work with is probably unconscious secondary gains, and you will require longer time to work with beliefs as compared to what you would require once you do the level 2. Level 2 also gives you a bit more details about taking more detailed advanced interviews. But having said that, I know of a lot of people who have done level 1 and who have a proper running practice based purely on level 1. Level 1 is a 5-day course, 9 to 6. Now that we are doing it online, it's become a 7-day program, 10:30 to 5:30. We have it over weekends, Saturday, Sunday, which will be 10:30 to 5:30, or over weekdays, where Monday, Wednesday, Friday, evening 6:30 to 9:30. Different batches kind of start at different times, so you will have to check out the ICAS website for the actual schedule of it. And then there is like 7 days at a stretch that we are conducting, which is also available that you can do. What you will be able to do with level 1 is, or what you will learn in level 1 is the entire soft C model, along with helping people restructure their thoughts, help them change their emotional associations with the help of anchoring. You will learn the entire hypnotic process in a structured manner, where you'll be able to guide people in a hypnotic state and help them achieve their outcomes based on the soft C process that you've used with them. Self-hypnosis is covered again as a part of level 1, and there are a couple of other small processes that can be used with clients with hypnosis or without hypnosis both. Level 2 then goes into advanced uh, interviewing techniques. It also gets into understanding getting deeper understanding of beliefs, values, uh, working with positive intentions. And then there's a model called levels of transformation, where you also get into working with identity and working with helping people connect to their,
Yeah.
for the lack of any other purpose, for the lack of any other word, for connect with their higher purpose. So all of that is what is covered as a part of level 2. After level 2, we expect you to be able to work with any kind of life coaching issues. So what you will not be able to work with is basically intense negative emotions and disorder. You can apply level 1 and level 2 towards relationship coaching in a standard format, but there's also a separate specialization in relationship coaching, where we only focus on relationship coaching, which we recommend to people to do if they've at least done level 1 with us, or if they've already got some background in coaching. Right? Are the courses available in Hindi? When we are conducting the courses, the general format of the course is in English, but we do answer any questions or queries that you have, even in Hindi. But yeah, the programs, the way we conduct it right now, at least the coaching certifications are in English. The anxiety course now is also being conducted in Hindi. The anxiety counseling certification and the relationship counseling certification soon will also be conducted in Hindi, if I'm not wrong. But if I'm correct, the coaching program, because it's a lot more extensive program, to convert it into Hindi is because you also have to work on and converting the online modules and converting the books and so on. So that's a bit more tricky. Your questions will be answered in Hindi. You will be able to work with clients who come to you with issues who are Hindi speaking clients. That you will be able to do. But the program language predominantly will be English.
Okay, let's know, Zeenat, if that resolves your query. Nitin, Meenu has 2 questions. I'm sharing them together, then you can answer them accordingly. Her first question was, if we talk about depression and NLP, many times I used removing past painful memories and swish technique. But after a couple of weeks, client have had the same depression. Again, it's not that I'm not using techniques properly, but it's a genuine problem. Kindly elaborate NLP with eye charts. That's her first question. Her second one is, can we go for hypnosis course without having psychology background?
Okay. So when you let me answer the first question first. When you speak about removing past painful memories in swish technique, see what happens really is when you're working with clients, there are symptom level problems and there are deeper level problems, right? In symptom level problems, swish will work. But when you have a client who has a deeper emotional cause or a positive intention, only working with swish or even removing past painful memories may not be enough, because what happens with removing past painful memories at times is that the client is not just removing the memory, they're also kind of forgetting what they were supposed to learn from it. And then there is no focus on application of those learnings going forward, which means if the same situation were to repeat again, the chances that they will repeat the same mistake again is very high, and the problem will come back again. So the way to work with that is that we actually look at problems in a layer by layer format. So probably that will answer your first question completely. We look at problems in the sense that a client comes, they may have a problem at the level of being able to define a problem, at the level of being able to identify what their outcomes are. The problems may be because they don't know what the plan of action is. Once they know all of this, the problem can be that there is a particular thought or an emotion that's stopping them from taking action, where the techniques that you've mentioned will work by themselves. But then if it's a deeper level issue where that's not working, then comes the next layer where we may need to work with clients' beliefs, values, defense mechanisms, positive intentions, meta programs. Now, depending upon which technique in NLP you're using, some techniques will work with some of these processes, some will not work with some of these processes. So that becomes the next layer. Many a times, even that may not be enough, especially when you're working with depression and you're working with anxiety disorders, because the problems are actually deeper. And that's where working with traumas, intense negative emotions will become important. There are techniques in NLP to cover that, to be true, but most NLP institutes that I've seen, and when I've gone through both their curriculum and when I've spoken to people who have gone through courses with them, have told me that those techniques are not covered in as much of detail as they should be. And the reason for that, and that comes to the question NLP with iChat, is that the moment you start working with intense negative emotions, depression, generalized anxiety disorders, you need to be able to customize processes for the clients. And that's where hypnosis comes into play. NLP in its format, the way it's taught in most institutes, is very structured, good for people who are starting fresh. But when you start working with deeper issues, you need to be able to help clients work based on what works for them. You have to customize your processes for the clients, and you can't expect the clients to align with your processes. And that's where the short term and the long term results come into play. With iChars, what happens is, because you're not just using NLP, you're getting in-depth understanding of one, hypnosis, which means any place that NLP doesn't work, you can induce the client in a hypnotic state and use the NLP processes. More importantly, you're also getting a deeper understanding of the other models in psychology. You're learning about psychoanalysis, you're learning about behavioral psychology. So the ability to mix and match techniques and integrate them together is far better than what you would learn from a standard NLP program, which is one. Now, when it comes to hypnosis, learning hypnosis without psychology background is not really a problem. The problem is, where do you apply hypnosis? So if you say, I want to learn hypnosis because I want to apply it towards coaching processes, I want to help people set their goals, I want to help them overcome their hindrances related to whatever ongoing thoughts and emotions they have, then you can learn hypnosis, you can apply hypnosis. But if you want to work with depression, you want to work with disorders, whether you've learned hypnosis or not is irrelevant. You should be having a master's in psychology to be working with those people, or you should at least be pursuing a master's in psychology to be able to work with those people, right? From a counseling point of view. And the reason for that is that those are areas which may require you some more understanding of the working of the mind than it's available in classical NLP programs. While in our hypnosis programs, we cover all of them, but we still mandate that you need to have a master's in psychology. You should at least be pursuing your master's before you join us for the higher levels. The only reason is because we want to see whether people who are joining us are sincere about doing what they want to do. We have noticed a lot of times in situations where we've interacted with people, that people did hypnosis courses because they were available. They learned certain techniques while they were not really interested in becoming practitioners. But when they learned it, they thought, now that I've invested money, I want to work with people. So in the class, they were not serious about practicing, but they started working with people. Eventually, that led to a lot more problems and solutions. And that's the reason why we make it mandatory that if you want to do higher levels, where you learn with us how to work with intense negative emotions and disorders, at least pursuing your master's in psychology is mandatory.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. While legally speaking, as of now in India, there is no restriction on whether you can learn hypnosis with or without psychology background. It's more where you apply it. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. I don't see any other questions, Nitin. Do you?
Perfect. So I think we have also overshot the time again today.
As usual.
So Minu, I'm sharing the link with you for the psychotherapy course. If you want to check out, you can check that course page out. Perfect. So with that, I would like to thank all of you. Thank you for asking us your questions, for joining us for these interactions. Uh, while we may not be joining you next week, next Thursday, because officially the series is coming to an end today, we would plan for something else later on and we would come back. Meanwhile, there are a lot of other activities that we are doing. There is the Psych Talks that happens every Friday. It will be tomorrow, 7:30 to 8:30, but that's on Facebook Live. Follow the iChas page and you get notifications for all of that. Sundays, there's the spiritual talks where we have people from certain spiritual backgrounds coming and talking about their spiritual practices. Mondays, we have NGO talks where we invite NGOs who are working in the area of mental health and we have an interaction with them. Wednesdays, we have our alumni who come and who talk about how they've applied what we do and what they've learned with us in terms of their practices. So all of these are talks which are available. You can follow iChar's page and you should get notifications about all of these. We have started recently the Quick Talks for Therapists series, 5-minute talks, 5-minute videos. So there are a lot of things happening. I think if I kind of talk over it, will take us another hour. So simply speaking, please follow the iChar's pages and you'll get a lot of notifications about all of those things. And if you're interested in the courses, the details are available on the iChar's page.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you, sir. I'm Zina Zahid. सर
Hi,
आपका
Zina.
इस सीरीज को देख करके एक हमको बहुत मतलब थोड़े से डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो रहे थे अपने उससे काउंसलिंग और कोचिंग को लेकर के और आपने एक स्ट्रेटजी हमारी बना